Labrador Charlie would never cross the basement door. Every night he would stand guard, growl, and prevent his owner Mike from going downstairs. Mike thought Charlie just had old house fears. But what did Charlie know that Mike didn't? And when Mike learned the truth, why did he immediately decide to move? Mike Patterson noticed it on the very first night he moved into his new house. His loyal Labrador Charlie, a dog who normally went everywhere with complete confidence and curiosity, had frozen solid in front of the basement door. As Charlie approached the door, his ears perked up dramatically, his entire body tensed like a coiled spring, and he positioned himself like a living, breathing barrier directly in front of Mike. "What's wrong, Charlie?" "I'm just going to check out the basement," Mike said with confusion, trying to step around his dog, but Charlie was absolutely resolute. The 4-year-old Golden Labrador would absolutely never allow him to pass through that basement door, no matter what Mike tried. Mike had rescued Charlie 3 years ago from a local animal shelter, and the beautiful golden-colored Labrador had never shown such specific territorial or protective behavior before in their time together. Charlie was usually the most easygoing, friendly, and adaptable dog you could imagine. He loved exploring new places, meeting new people, investigating every corner and crevice of any new environment they encountered. But something about this particular basement door was fundamentally different, triggering an intense protective response. The house itself was a charming 1950s colonial-style home that Mike had purchased after his recent divorce proceedings were finalized. He'd been looking for a fresh start, somewhere peaceful where he could rebuild his life with just him and Charlie as companions. The previous owners had been an elderly couple named the Hendersons who'd lived there for over 4 decades before moving to an assisted living facility. Everything about the house seemed absolutely perfect for Mike's new beginning, except for Charlie's completely inexplicable and increasingly concerning behavior around that basement door. As the days passed into weeks, Charlie's behavior became increasingly peculiar and deeply concerning to Mike. Every single night, as if responding to some invisible alarm clock that only he could hear, Charlie would make his way to the basement door and position himself there, maintaining a vigilant, unwavering watch until the first light of dawn appeared through the windows. Mike would wake up at various times during the night to find Charlie there, ears standing completely erect, body posture rigid with tension, eyes focused intensely on the door as if expecting something dangerous to emerge from behind it at any moment. Maybe it's just the lingering scent of the previous owners or their pets, Mike thought initially, trying to rationalize his dog's strange behavior. But Charlie's reactions went far beyond simple scent recognition or territorial marking. The dog behaved as if there was some kind of imminent, serious danger lurking behind that door, something that posed a direct and immediate threat to Mike's safety and well-being. During the daylight hours, Charlie would occasionally approach the basement door with obvious caution, sniff carefully around the door frame and threshold, and then back away with clear signs of discomfort and distress. His tail would lower significantly, his ears would flatten against his head defensively, and he would immediately seek out Mike's presence as if needing reassurance and protection. It was behavior that Mike had never witnessed before in all their years together, and it was starting to genuinely worry him about his dog's mental state. The basement door itself appeared completely normal and unremarkable, just a standard wooden door painted crisp white, with a simple brass handle that matched the other doors throughout the house. There was absolutely nothing visually alarming, unusual, or obviously different about it compared to any other door in the house. Yet Charlie treated it like it was the entrance to hell itself, showing intense fear and protective aggression whenever Mike approached it. Charlie's protective behaviors intensified dramatically with each passing day, becoming more desperate and pronounced in their intensity. Whenever Mike attempted to go downstairs to explore the basement, Charlie would immediately panic, bark frantically with genuine distress, and physically try to block his path using his entire body as a barrier. The dog would plant himself firmly and immovably in front of the door, refusing to move despite Mike's increasingly firm commands, treats, or attempts to coax him aside. "Charlie, this behavior is completely unacceptable," Mike would say with growing frustration and concern, but the anxiety and fear in Charlie's expressive brown eyes was undeniably real and heartbreaking to witness. The dog seemed to be desperately trying to protect Mike from some invisible threat that only he could perceive or understand. It was as if Charlie could sense something genuinely dangerous that Mike's human senses simply couldn't detect or comprehend. The situation became so severe and disruptive to their daily routine that Mike began seriously questioning his own perception and judgment. Was there actually something wrong with the basement that he was completely missing? Had the previous owners left something dangerous down there? Charlie's distress was so genuine, consistent, and intense that Mike found himself beginning to doubt whether there might actually be a completely legitimate reason for his dog's increasingly protective behavior. Mike tried absolutely everything he could think of to help Charlie overcome what he initially assumed was some kind of irrational fear or anxiety disorder. He brought special treats to the basement door, trying to create positive associations with the area. He left the door wide open during daylight hours, hoping Charlie would gradually become comfortable with it through exposure. He even tried gently carrying Charlie toward the basement, but the dog would become so extremely distressed and panicked that Mike immediately abandoned that approach, worried about traumatizing his beloved companion further. When his next-door neighbor Margaret heard about Charlie's unusual behavior during a casual conversation over the garden fence, she gave Mike a strange, knowing look that immediately caught his attention and made him feel uneasy. "You know, the Henderson family who lived there before you mentioned some odd things too," she said vaguely, her voice dropping to almost a conspiratorial whisper as she glanced toward Mike's house. Margaret was a widow in her mid-70s who had lived on the street for over 30 years and had become the unofficial neighborhood historian. She had known the previous owners very well and had watched several different families come and go over the decades. Her cryptic comment stuck in Mike's mind, replaying itself over and over throughout the following days and nights. What kind of odd things exactly? Mike pressed her for more details, but Margaret seemed strangely reluctant to elaborate further on her comment. "Oh, just strange sounds, unexplained noises coming from below. Nothing they could ever quite figure out or identify. But their old German shepherd acted very similarly to your Charlie." She paused thoughtfully, looking directly into Mike's eyes. "Animals know things, Mike. They can sense things that we humans simply can't understand or perceive." This conversation planted a seed of genuine concern and worry in Mike's mind. If the previous owners had experienced similar unexplained issues, and their dog had exhibited similar protective and fearful behavior, perhaps Charlie's instincts were actually trying to warn him about something real and potentially dangerous that he needed to take seriously. Growing increasingly worried about Charlie's mental state and overall well-being, Mike decided to seek professional help and guidance. He made an appointment with Dr. Lisa Martinez, a highly respected veterinarian who had been practicing in the local area for over 15 years and was known throughout the community for her expertise in animal behavior and psychology. After conducting a comprehensive physical examination and behavioral assessment, Dr. Martinez delivered her professional assessment with confidence. "Charlie is in absolutely perfect physical health," she said, checking her detailed notes carefully. "However, dogs are incredibly sensitive creatures with sensory capabilities that far exceed our own human limitations. They can detect sounds, sense vibrations, electromagnetic fields, and environmental changes that are completely imperceptible to human senses." "So you're actually saying that Charlie's behavior might have a completely legitimate cause?" Mike asked, feeling both relieved and concerned simultaneously about the implications. "Absolutely, without question," Dr. Martinez replied with professional confidence. "Dogs' instincts and sensory perceptions are remarkably accurate and reliable. They can sense structural problems in buildings, detect dangerous gas leaks, identify electrical issues and fire hazards, and even predict natural disasters hours or days before they occur. Charlie's specific behavior pattern suggests he's detecting something very particular about that basement area that's triggering his protective instincts." She strongly recommended that Mike consider having the basement area professionally inspected by qualified experts, particularly focusing on potential environmental hazards or structural issues that might not be immediately obvious to human observation and detection methods. That very night, Mike decided to observe Charlie's behavior more closely and systematically than he had before. He positioned himself quietly in the hallway where he could watch without interfering with or influencing his dog's natural behavior patterns. At exactly midnight, just like clockwork, Charlie made his way purposefully to the basement door and began his usual vigilant watch, but this time Mike paid extremely careful attention to every single detail of his dog's behavior and body language. Charlie wasn't just passively standing guard, he was actively listening with intense concentration, his head tilted at very specific angles as if trying to isolate and identify particular sounds or frequencies. Mike found himself straining to hear whatever Charlie was detecting with his superior canine hearing. Initially, he heard nothing but the normal settling sounds that any old house makes during temperature changes. But then, after several minutes of very focused listening, he began to perceive it too, a very faint, almost subliminal humming or vibration sound that seemed to be emanating from somewhere beneath the floor. The sound was so extremely subtle and barely perceptible that Mike seriously questioned whether he was actually hearing something real or just imagining it due to his heightened state of attention and anxiety. But Charlie's intensely focused attention and obvious concern confirmed that there was definitely something audible happening in or around the basement area that was causing his protective response and vigilant behavior. The following morning, Mike gathered his courage and determination and decided to conduct a preliminary basement investigation despite Charlie's obvious distress. Charlie went absolutely frantic with worry and panic, barking desperately, whining with genuine distress, and wrapping himself around Mike's legs in a desperate attempt to physically prevent him from going downstairs into what the dog clearly perceived as a dangerous area. But Mike was determined to understand what was causing his beloved dog's persistent distress and protective behavior. The basement initially appeared completely normal and unremarkable at first glance, filled with the typical accumulation of forgotten cardboard boxes, old furniture pieces, seasonal decorations, and miscellaneous household items that the previous owners had left behind when they moved to assisted living. However, as Mike explored the basement space more carefully and systematically, he became increasingly aware of several troubling and concerning details that hadn't been immediately obvious. There was a distinctly unusual smell permeating the air, not quite the typical basement mustiness or mold, not quite dampness, but something else entirely that he couldn't immediately identify. The smell was subtle but persistent, and it seemed to be noticeably stronger in certain specific areas of the basement. Additionally, Mike noticed that the basement felt unusually humid and moisture-laden, even for a below-ground space in an older house. The concrete foundation walls showed clear signs of moisture damage and water infiltration, and there were small puddles of standing water in several corners that he couldn't immediately explain or trace to any obvious source. Recognizing that he needed expert professional help and guidance, Mike contacted Robert Chen, a certified home inspector with over 20 years of experience in residential structural analysis. "My dog is exhibiting very strange and concerning behavior specifically regarding our basement area," Mike explained during their initial phone conversation. "I'm wondering if there might be some kind of structural or environmental issue that I'm not detecting with my limited knowledge." Robert's preliminary inspection of the basement area immediately revealed several causes for serious concern and alarm. "The humidity levels down here are dangerously high and well beyond acceptable parameters," he said, consulting his professional-grade digital moisture meter and other specialized equipment. "And these cracks in the foundation walls are much more extensive and concerning than they should be in a house of this age. I'm going to need to conduct a much more thorough and comprehensive structural analysis." Robert went on to explain that dogs are often among the first to detect serious structural problems in buildings because their enhanced sensory capabilities allow them to perceive vibrations, shifts in air pressure, and subtle changes in a building's stability that humans cannot perceive. "Your dog's specific behavior pattern is actually quite consistent with animals who are detecting serious structural issues that could potentially pose safety risks," he told Mike with professional concern. Robert's detailed and comprehensive structural analysis revealed a truly horrifying truth that no one had anticipated or prepared for. "Mr. Patterson," Robert said with an extremely grave expression and serious tone, "this house has severe foundational problems that pose immediate safety risks. The basement walls are on the verge of complete structural failure." Mike felt his blood run completely cold as the implications sank in. "What exactly does that mean for our safety?" "It means this house could potentially collapse at any time without warning," Robert explained with solemn professional gravity. "The foundation has deteriorated to a critical point where structural integrity is severely compromised. Your dog has probably been sensing the structural vibrations, the subtle movements, and the sounds of a building that's literally falling apart from the inside. Charlie has been desperately trying to protect you from a genuine, immediate, life-threatening danger. The comprehensive inspection revealed that decades of unaddressed water damage had severely compromised the structural integrity of the entire foundation system. The basement walls were slowly buckling and failing under the enormous weight of the house above, and the entire structure was precariously balanced on what Robert described as catastrophically unstable foundations that could fail without warning. Structural engineer Dr. Sarah Johnson's comprehensive professional report painted an even more frightening and alarming picture of their situation. This house is completely uninhabitable and poses immediate danger to anyone inside, she declared after thoroughly reviewing all the inspection data and conducting her own independent analysis. The foundation is not just damaged, it's in a state of complete and catastrophic deterioration. The entire structure could collapse without any warning at any moment. Dr. Johnson explained in technical detail that the house had originally been built on inadequate foundations that had been further compromised over the decades by extensive water infiltration, significant soil shifting, and natural structural deterioration. Living in this house is essentially equivalent to living in a building that's constantly on the verge of complete collapse, she said with professional authority. Mike looked at Charlie with newfound respect, overwhelming gratitude, and complete amazement. His loyal dog had been desperately trying to save his life for months, using the only methods available to him: persistent protective behavior and constant warnings about the basement area where the structural problems were most severe and dangerous. "Charlie, you literally saved my life," Mike said with emotion, kneeling down to embrace his loyal and intelligent companion. Throughout all those months of what Mike had misinterpreted as stubborn, irrational, and problematic behavior, Charlie had actually been demonstrating sophisticated protective instincts specifically designed to keep Mike away from a genuinely deadly situation that could have killed him. Dr. Martinez had been absolutely correct in her professional assessment: dogs' instincts and sensory perceptions are remarkably reliable and accurate. Charlie's persistent refusal to allow Mike near the basement had effectively prevented him from spending any significant time in the most structurally compromised area of a house that could have literally killed him at any moment without warning. Mike realized with overwhelming gratitude that every single night Charlie had maintained his vigilant watch, the dog had been acting as a sophisticated early warning system, continuously monitoring the sounds and vibrations of a building that was in the active process of structural failure. Charlie's behavior hadn't been neurotic, problematic, or irrational, it had been intelligent, protective, and potentially life-saving. Mike immediately put the dangerous house on the market as is and began urgently searching for a new, structurally sound and safe home for himself and Charlie. The move couldn't happen fast enough. Knowing that he had been unknowingly living in a building that was on the verge of complete collapse made every single day spent in that house feel extremely dangerous and terrifying. When they finally moved into their new, professionally inspected and certified safe home, the difference in Charlie's behavior was immediate, dramatic, and completely transformative. The dog was instantly relaxed, happy, playful, and completely at ease in their new environment. There was no basement door vigilance, no anxious protective behavior, no signs of stress or concern whatsoever. Charlie had immediately returned to his normal, easygoing, friendly personality that Mike remembered and loved. "Thank you, buddy," Mike said with deep emotion, scratching behind Charlie's ears as they settled into their safe new environment together. "You really are a genuine hero who saved my life." The entire experience had taught Mike to trust his dog's instincts completely and without question, and to recognize that animals possess sensory capabilities and protective intelligence that humans often underestimate, dismiss, or completely fail to understand. Charlie had literally saved his life through months of persistent, loving, and intelligent protection. If this incredible story of intuition and protection touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to Heart Animal Stories. Every like helps us share more remarkable stories of pets whose extraordinary protective instincts and life-saving intuition keep their families safe from hidden dangers we never see coming. Don't forget to ring that notification bell so you never miss our latest stories of protective pets, home safety heroes, and the extraordinary ways our family dogs monitor our environment for threats. We share new incredible tales twice a week that prove our pets are much more than companions, there are personal safety systems with abilities that can literally save lives.